This is the 2021 Ford Mustang GT in the Grabber Yellow, which Ford brought back for the 2021 model year. Now, a couple things that are special about the one in behind me. It's got the GT Performance Pack, but it also has the 300A package, which is the base entry-level Mustang. And you might be thinking, there's nothing special about the 300A, and that's the point. This thing is basic, it's stripped down, it doesn't have a ton of the other options that you're gonna see inside of those higher packages, which means we've got the same performance, which means it's a track-ready Mustang without having a lot of the extra technology that you may not necessarily care about if you ultimately wanna get this thing on a track with great performance. Steve here, Cars with Steve, and before we get started, I want to give a huge shout out and a thank you to Formula Ford for giving me access to this vehicle to shoot the video for you today. Check down in the description below for their contact details. But let's dive into it, have a little bit of fun, take this thing out for a spin, and see why the 300A Mustang with the performance package is a killer deal. Starting off, looking at some exterior styling in the vehicle. So if we look at the Mustang in general, traditionally going to be an 18-inch tire. But when we get into the GT Performance Package, it goes from an 18 to a 19-inch. And on top of that, the rubber itself is actually the Pirelli P0, which is an incredibly rated summer tire. Now, having said that, it's essentially going to be a bald street legal rubber. So this is not something you're going to want to drive in the winter time or really outside of the summer. And the reason why is because looking at the actual rubber, the groove itself, very, very thin. Like, these things may have a shelf life of like 10,000 kilometers at the very most, depending on your driving habits. Now, when we look at that upgraded performance package, the Brembo brakes we get in the front there as well are also going to be 6 pistons. So it's a 6-piston caliper that's going to be included inside of the vehicle. Now, that's beneficial for a couple different reasons. Now, yes, the Mustang is a rear-wheel drive vehicle, but as you go to slam on the brakes, the weight gets shifted to the front, which we've got upgraded springs, we've got the Brembo brakes as well, and that's a benefit because it improves your stopping performance. If we were to take a peek underneath, now as part of that performance package, it's got the K-brace as well as that rear anti-sway bar, which again is going to help us with our performance there. Now, over and above that, I mentioned the springs that are going to be included there as well. Let's actually do a couple shots underneath so you can actually see what this stuff looks like, but you get an unbelievably large amount of performance when we get into that GT Performance Pack. Moving to the front of the vehicle, so as you can see there, we've got a beautiful splitter along the front. One of the benefits of the performance splitter here is it actually creates a little bit of downforce. Huge benefit because as you start to go a little bit faster, it means that the car is going to hug the ground a tiny little bit more. Now, on top of that, as part of the performance package, we can just make it up behind this beautiful black honeycomb grille. We've got a larger radiator. Now, what that's going to do is actually keep things a little bit cooler underneath the hood, and that's a huge benefit, especially if you're going to take this thing on the track. Now, the stock one is good, the upgraded one is even better, and you can look at some aftermarket solutions to make things a little bit colder, and that's, again, for added performance. Now, here's an example. If you've ever driven a Mustang early in the spring or later on in the fall when it's a little bit colder out, you've probably realized or recognized that you get added performance. And that's because of the cold air that's getting pushed underneath the vehicle. You look at that larger radiator, if you look at a larger intercooler or other options as well, you're going to help improve that performance even more. Now, one other thing to note, when we actually look at the suspension system, so inside of the performance package, it is still going to be the base suspension system. We do have the option for MagneRide that we can get from the factory as well. Now, the benefit there has got to do with the actual way that the vehicle is going to hug and roll as you start to turn. So without the MagneRide system, as we start to turn, you'll notice that the vehicle starts to kind of roll a little bit this way. With the MagneRide system, when you start to turn, it hardens up all of the particles, magnetic particles inside of that suspension system, which stiffens up the body. So rather than us turning like this, we turn a little bit flatter, which again is going to help our overall performance. If you're contemplating getting MagneRide, or if you're thinking about maybe upgrading your suspension afterwards, I definitely recommend looking at that solution from the factory directly. The MagneRide system is incredible, and it's just an overall part of the overall performance inside of this vehicle. Looking at some styling in the back. So this is not the wing we're going to see standard inside of the vehicle. Now, as part of the performance package, we've got this wing. You could technically remove it. You could add something on if you want to. But one of the benefits, again, creating that added downforce, which if you're looking for a performance vehicle, this is good because it's not too high up, which means it's not going to create too much negative drag at the same time. On top of that, we've got our GT badge in the back. Now, we can tell it's a GT rather than the regular EcoBoost Mustang because of the badging. If you look at a Mustang and you see a pony in the back there, you've got an EcoBoost. Now, we do have our sequential lighting, and when it comes down to the actual exhaust, when we get into the GT, we've got that quad tip exhaust as well. Now, one of the different things about this one is it also has the active valve exhaust. The active valve exhaust is going to give us a few different sounds inside of the vehicle as well. Let's actually start this thing up so you can hear what it sounds like. So that was pretty damn nice, right? Now that is still the exhaust that's going to be standard from the factory. If you look at Borla and a few of the other companies that are out there, they've actually got a system that works in conjunction with the active valve. So you can actually use the active valve system with a different sounding exhaust as well. So lots of different options when it comes down to it. But I love the way that it sounds stock, and it's kind of neat that you can play around with the different options and the different sounds as well, whether you're on the 300, the 401, etc. This is the 5-liter V8 engine, so the naturally aspirated engine we're going to find inside of the Mustang GT. So great look when it comes down to it. Looking at it from a power perspective, this thing is going to be able to push out 460 horsepower and 420 pound-feet of torque, so plenty of power. All right, now we're taking a peek underneath the hood. So as you can see there, we've got easy access to top up some fluids if we need to. We've got that beautiful 5-liter badge, as well as our strut tower brace, painted black inside of the performance package. Now on top of that, as you can see, we do have quite a little bit of space underneath there. So if we wanted to add in a supercharger, things like that, we've got that capability. Filling up on fuel. Now this is the point of contention between a lot of Mustang owners, and the reason why is because the factory recommends an 87 octane as a minimum. So do you need to use a higher premium fuel? No, technically not, but this is also a premium vehicle. It's a performance vehicle. 5-liter V8 engine inside of this thing. So at a minimum, I recommend a 91 octane, at a minimum. Ideally, it should be a 93 or a 94. And the reason why is because of the clunking. So if you use a lower quality fuel inside of a high performance engine, you might start to notice engine knocking. If that happens, increase it to a 91, 93, or a 94 octane, and you'll absolutely notice a huge difference, not only underneath the hood, but you'll actually get a little bit of a bump in horsepower and torque as well. We looked at a bunch of things on the outside of the vehicle. Now that's going to be standard across the entire Mustang lineup. We've got that backup camera, that reverse sensing system, and as part of the GT Performance Pack, we've got all of those exterior options that we covered off. Now this is where things are going to be a little bit different, because inside of the Mustang GT Performance Package, we've got this beautiful spun aluminum look, and we've got our gauges there as well. So our vacuum gauge as well as our oil pressure gauge. Now outside of that, this is where things are going to be a little bit different, because if you're not picky with technology, the 300 pack of the vehicle, it's going to give you a small 4-inch screen. You can connect your phone to the vehicle if you wanted to make phone calls, and that's really about it. We don't have the option for factory navigation, things like that. When we put the car into reverse, it's going to come up on this screen, very, very tiny look to it. But again, if you don't care about that added technology, you can definitely look at this as an option, because we do have the option of jumping into what's known as a 301A package. It's going to give us our toggle shifters, our toggle switches along the bottom, and that larger 8-inch media screen, that Sync 3 media screen, which is going to give us Android Auto and Apple CarPlay. But again, if you don't care about the technology, this is a really good option. Now this one is the 10-speed automatic transmission, which means a couple different things. Now inside of the 10-speed auto transmission, in the base Mustang, it's a 3.31 axle ratio. When we jump into the GT Performance Package, with the 10-speed, it's going to be a 3.55. With the 6-speed, it's a 3.73. Now that's how many times the actual drivetrain has to spin in order for the wheels to rotate once. So the higher that number, the better your acceleration is going to be, but it's also going to negatively impact your fuel performance. Now if you're looking for a street vehicle that you're occasionally going to track, this is a good option. The 3.55 axle ratio inside of the 10-speed auto is great, but I know some people, they love the 6 speeds. You could definitely look at the 6-speed, knowing that when you get into the performance package, 3.73 axle ratio, which is going to give you even better acceleration. And moving just to the left-hand side of the steering wheel, so we can figure out what's going on with our running lamps. We've also got our sunglasses holder. We've got a trunk release there. Just by our right knee, we also do have another little lever, and that's going to be for the telescopic steering wheel. Now as we move in front of us, so a few things to point out. We've got our volume rocker, we've got our basic cruise control, figure out what's going on with the cluster screen, our voice command prompt as well. We do have our paddle shifter, so our minus and plus buttons to be able to change gears out as we'd like to. Now as part of the safety package standard inside of Ford vehicles now, we do have our lane keeping system, and then we also have our blind spot system, so it lets us know if anybody's entered the blind spot on either side of the vehicle. Now, as we start to move down a little bit, so this is going to be the 4-inch media screen that is going to be standard inside of either the 100 EcoBoost or the 300 GT. Moving down a bit more, we've got some basic audio controls, our basics for climate control, we've got our start-stop button, 4-way blinkers, traction control, and then we can change what's going on with our steering wheel mode. Now moving down, this is the 10-speed automatic transmission. So we've got our park, reverse, neutral, drive, and then our sport mode. Sport mode is actually going to hold onto the gears a little bit longer, and we do have the option of also using the minus and the plus buttons on the steering wheel as well if we want to change the gears out. Just knowing that when we're in that sport mode, things are going to hold onto those gears just a teeny little bit longer as well. A few other things to point out. We've got our parking brake. It's going to be the same position whether we get the 6-speed or the 10-speed. We've got our cup holders as well as this little armrest. Up overhead, we've got our auto-dimming rear view mirror, cabin control lights, and then we've also got our vanity mirror with lights there as well. And then this thing, we could technically pop this thing off and extend it out if we need to block a little bit of sun as well. All right, folks, now time for the fun part. Let's take this thing out for a little bit of a test drive and see how it handles on the highway. Oh. All right, so a couple things. Like I said, this is the GT Performance Pack, which means that it's got a couple extra things performance-wise, and it's also the 10-speed automatic. So I've always kind of been torn with the automatics just because I come from driving a 6-speed. But having said that, just because I come from driving a 6-speed doesn't mean that I can't appreciate the beauty that is the 10-speed automatic. Oh, this is good. Oh, just the sound. The sound of that V8 is absolutely beautiful. All right, let's get that airflow going. It is a toasty day today. All right, so a couple things. I've got the steering set up in the sport mode, and then that's really about it. I've actually got the exhaust set up for the sport mode as well, so it's going to sound a tiny little bit different when we get into the normal versus the sport versus the track and quiet, things like that. They're going to have different ranges and different pitches and things like that, so it's ultimately going to depend on what do you like your exhaust sounding like. But I love the fact that we can say that inside of the vehicle with the active valve exhaust. So do you need to get active valve? No, it's definitely not necessary, but it's a nice touch. Oh, that's nice. Now, like I said, the big thing, whether you look at the 300 versus the 301, the 401 or the 400, I should say, with that entire lineup, do you like cloth seats? Do you like leather seats? What are your own personal preferences? Because that is literally going to dictate how you're going to build this thing out. Oh, that's nice. All right, that's nice. that's pretty nice. Oh, that highway is looking like a write-off. Oh, that's not gonna be good. I'm not doing that right now. Yeah, the highway's a write-off right now. Oh. Yeah, so which package of the vehicle you go for is ultimately going to depend on you and what technology you like inside of your vehicle. Like if you're the type of person where you don't really care about any of the added technology, the extra stuff, the 300 pack of the version when you get into that GT Performance Pack is a great option because of all the extra performance upgrades that you get inside of the Performance Pack. Like it is a great call. But again, it's going to depend. Do you want that larger Sync 3 screen? Because you could technically look at replacing it aftermarket with a third-party system if you wanted to, but in Canada anyways, jumping into the 301 version of the vehicle is $2,400. So, I mean, if you find that those different options are useful for you, I mean, you could put up the extra $2,400 up front, or you can just wait until you need some extra features. But I mean, performance-wise, like this, it's the exact same. At the end of the day, it's literally the exact same as any of the other trim levels. It's going to depend on, do you want leather seats instead of the cloth? Because inside of this 300, we don't even have heated front seats, which, I mean, if you're not going to drive it in the wintertime anyways, it doesn't make a difference. But just knowing that you've got that option and you've got a little bit of flexibility when it comes down to, like, how do you have this thing configured? Lots of options that are available. That's nice, though. Kind of hover back a little bit and then give it a teeny bit of gas. Oh, I love it. I love it. And that growl that you get from this thing, like, it's a Mustang. You're gonna get that growl, you're gonna get that loud, beefy noise out of that engine. And this is just the regular engine as well. Like it's a regular engine, I should say. It's a 5-liter V8, so it's plenty powerful, but there's nothing that's been done to this thing. Like if you're looking for a little bit of added performance, if you get the 6-speed, you're gonna be in a 3/7/3 axle ratio anyways, but you could bump up that axle ratio if you want a little bit more performance. You could throw in all sorts of other things. Like if you've got the 6-speed, jump into the 410. If you're looking for even better performance, get a 410 axle ratio. You're gonna notice a night and day difference between the two of them. No, you don't get that out of an EcoBoost. That's amazing. Ooh, I am low on fuel. I hope that I don't strand myself somewhere here. I'm not gonna take the highway back just in case. I'm just gonna go some back roads here. Ashley, my man, you may hear from me. Hopefully not. Hopefully I don't have to message you and be like, hey, can you come give me some gas? That's always an awkward conversation. I'm not even in sport mode. So that's one of the interesting things about the 300 version of the vehicle. So if you want those selectable drive modes, things like that, you're bumping yourself up to the 301 version. You're gonna get toggle switches, which means you can toggle in between some different things. Like I personally love the look of the toggle switches. I love that layout and things like that. It's very user-friendly and it's very intuitive. Do you need it? No, but it's ultimately gonna depend on you. What do you like out of your car? See a little bit of a recurring theme here? It's ultimately gonna come down to you. Like, what do you like out of a car? Because at a minimum, like if you're contemplating occasionally putting it on the track, if you're gonna be using a street car for the most part, occasionally tracking it, the performance pack is a really, really good option. And the reason why is because of all those extra things that we get. We get the K-brace, we get the upsized sway bar, we get unique tuning as well. Now that's one of the interesting things is unique chassis tuning, e-pass, stability control, and a number of things. Because of the changes that are made, because of all of these extra components, you definitely need that added tune. Could you just do a tune aftermarket if you didn't get the performance pack? Absolutely. But by getting the tune done from the factory, they know what they're doing. Now, not saying these performance tuners, these guys don't know what they're doing, because they absolutely do. Like DeSilva Racing, I'm going to give you guys a shout out here because you guys have done some killer Mustang builds. But there are a lot of incredible shops out there is ultimately what I'm trying to get at. So you could look at some factory options, you could look at some aftermarket things. Now, the kicker with any sort of aftermarket add-on is that it might void your warranty. Now I say might because it doesn't happen all the time. It's going to depend on what work you get done and more importantly, where you get the work done. So one thing to consider is that if you're going to look at getting some work done, check with a performance dealer first. So Ford Performance, an SVT dealer, it's essentially a power sport dealer. Those are going to be the people that you'll go to in order to get the Shelby Mustang, the Mustang Raptor, or the F-150 Raptor, things like that, because those guys are performance shops. If they can't do the work themselves, they'll be able to tell you where you can get the work done, where it's still covered under your factory warranty. So definitely something to consider there is that you've got a lot of options when it comes down to it. Just don't be afraid to pick up the phone and talk to somebody. Find a Ford dealer in your area that can help out, even if you've got to drive half an hour or an hour to get the work done. Because if you're the type of person you want to make sure you're covered under warranty, then go somewhere where you can get it done under warranty. If you don't care about the warranty, you're just going to be driving this thing on the track anyways, the warranty is going to be irrelevant. So if you're going to be tracking it, warranty is pretty much out the window. So just go and have fun with your car at the end of the day. Do what you need to do. But it's nice to know that you've got a ton of flexibility when it comes down to it, and the performance. The performance is so good. So good. All right, that's nice. That's nice. All right, folks, so that was a look at the 300 version of the Mustang GT. So definitely a good bang for your buck. If you're looking at getting something with killer performance, you're gonna take on the track without a lot of the added technology stuff. Because if you don't care about it, it doesn't even matter. And even if you do, you could always upgrade it aftermarket as well. So tons of different options available. If you enjoyed the content, give it a thumbs up. Think about subscribing and sharing it with your social networks. And until I see you next time, make sure you stay safe.